Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. And this is Holly.
Hi, Holly.
Hello.
This is Cameron.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Cameron, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Wahoo!
Ready to go. All right.
Good morning and welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors regular meeting for February 28, 2023. If you can, please stand and join me in the pledge. Supervisor Garamendi, can you please lead us?
Certainly. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have an announcement this morning. We will be moving item number 21 up to right after item number 2, recognitions and acknowledgements. So item number 21 will be moved to right after item number 20, after item number 2. And with that, we move to staff announcements. Are there any staff announcements in the room? No staff announcements in the room. Is there any online? Lisa?
I do not show any staff announcements on the line.
Oh, man, we have no staff announcements this morning. Okay, we'll move on to winter storm updates. It's John Osborne. He's not in the room. Hopefully he's online.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, John.
Okay, I apologize for not being there in the room with you guys. I'm up at the West Point Community Hall moving some equipment around to for this snowstorm. So good morning, John Osborne, your emergency services director. An update on the last set of storms. We currently have 350 folks have been registered through FEMA. And FEMA has allocated $268,116.80 through their individual assistance program. In addition to that, we have been assigned our project manager for our public assistance projects. Those are the road projects and the culverts and such. I spoke with the project manager yesterday, and we are holding our exploratory call next week. And that's the pre-runner to actually building the projects and the process to get those projects approved by FEMA. So we're moving right along quite nicely. And barring any questions, that's what my update is.
Any board questions? Supervisor Stopper.
Mr. Osborne, thank you. Have we had communication with the city and the special districts across the county on the public assistance?
Many of the special districts and the city were present for the initial briefing held by Cal OES that was held at the sheriff's office this last week at early last week. So
Thanks.
yes, sir.
Any other board questions? No? Any public comments on this item? Seeing no public comments. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And I think we're going to move these to once a month now instead of every meeting as we move along. So we'll probably see the next one on the 28th of March.
Okay, sounds good, sir. Thank you.
Okay, John, thanks.
Uh-huh.
We move on to item number 2. This is the recognitions and acknowledgements. This is a proclamation for economic and community development. Approve a proclamation designating March 2023 as Arts Education Month in Calaveras County. And I will turn this over to Supervisor Stopper.
Thank you, Supervisor Toffenelli. This proclamation recognizing March 2023 as Arts Education Month in Calaveras County. Whereas March is officially recognized as California Arts Education Month. Oh, thank you, sir. I'll start over.
Start over.
Whereas March is officially recognized as California Arts Education Month by the California Department of Education. And whereas the state of California defines arts education to include courses of study and interdisciplinary learning in dance, music, theater, design, visual, written, and media arts. And whereas the arts are an essential part of a complete education, no matter if it happens in the home, school, or community. And whereas these experiences encourage creative learning in children and young adults. And whereas a well-rounded education should include the stimulation and creative thinking that the arts help to develop. And whereas it is important that we recognize and celebrate the essential roles of arts education in our school. And whereas students of all ages benefit from artistic learning, innovative thinking, and creativity. With that, is there anybody here representing the creative arts, or anybody would like to make any comments? Ms. Galino.
Good morning, Chair, Honorable Board. Kathy Galino, your Economic and Community Development Director, and Kathy Mazzaferro is supposed to be here, so
Don't see her.
Whether
I'm thinking it was a weather situation. She was very excited and obviously very honored to have this proclamation, so thank you.
she's always a very good representative for the arts community. Any board comments? Anything online?
There is none online.
May we entertain a motion, Mr. Toffenelli, Supervisor?
I'll move this item.
Thank you, sir.
I will second that.
First by Supervisor Toffenelli, second by Supervisor Garamendi. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Therefore be it proclaimed that the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors recognizes March 2023 as Arts Education Month in Calaveras County as a way to further strengthen the importance of the arts and share the message with friends, family, and communities.
Kathy, you want to come up and accept it and give it to Kathy?
Yes.
I want to be in the picture.
Yeah, I think we all should.
I'll go down there.
So happy, I'll be the substitute on it.
Oh, wait, I Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Sure.
We missed a staff comment or?
No, I'm just here standing looking pretty.
This is true.
You brought your whole staff with you back up.
Never know what's gonna happen.
All right, we will move on to the regular agenda item number 21. It's the only item from the regular agenda we will do at this time. This is the resolution, Human Resources. This is adopt a resolution appointing Teresa Hitchcock as the county executive officer and authorize the board chair to sign the employment agreement. And I will turn this over to Craig.
we'll set up shop right here. This way you can see the immediate upgrade you're gonna have. Just saying. Anyway, yeah, it's my honor and privilege to introduce this item to you. But I also want to start with something also very important. Recognition of the work that your board has put in preparation, for the recruitment that's led to, bringing Teresa here to you today. Your board has taken the time to, look at the organization, the culture of the organization, and make some changes. You've adopted the first ever strategic plan that Calaveras County's ever had. You've involved yourself in your governance workshop, which produced a handbook on how you're going to relate with one another, with staff. First time. Your board has also introduced and passed a CEO ordinance, the first of its type for this, for this county, sending an important message of your desire, for change and leadership and so forth. And also very importantly, your board is also taking definitive action and continue to take definitive action in eliminating a structural deficit that had also, plagued the county. And with all that stuff pretty much done, that set the plate, if you will, for the recruitment that has taken place. We launched that in December. We closed the application period in mid-January. We had a 3-panel interview process of the top 5 candidates. From that came 2 candidates, of which Teresa was one. And I got to say, for anyone to get through that gauntlet, it was amazing. They had to go through, I think it was 4 sitting or retired county administrative officers. Are they technically competent to do the work? We had a 4-person or 5-person panel from the community. Are they going to fit well within the community of Calaveras? And then you had department heads. First time that's ever happened here. Had a panel of 6 department heads, 3 elected, 3 appointed, that also interviewed the candidates. And only there was only 2 of those candidates of the 5 that made it to final interview with your board. And then after the grilling with the board, it was up to the board to determine not only general fitness, but more importantly, is the person the right fit, going to work best, with you and this individual. And that's what led to Teresa. Just for the public, just to fill in some blanks, she does hold a Bachelor of Arts degree, majoring in political science and economics from CSU Bakersfield. She's had 22 years of experience, government experience in Kern County, from a departmental analyst to actually running their county airport. That happens every day. But she's also been a administrative analyst and deputy county administrator in the fiscal and policy world of the county administrator's office. And for the past 9 years, has served as the assistant CAO of Kern County, and her focus has been on workforce and economic development for Kern County. And doing the backgrounds on Teresa, it's okay, I can call you Teresa, as Ms. Hitchcock. We talked with her coworkers, her boss, and just others that work with her. And some of the things that were said of her repeatedly, they noted her integrity, her intelligence, her creativity, her good listening skills, her calm demeanor, and her ability to bring people together to achieve shared goals. We've talked about what I call the 3 C's: character, competence, and chemistry. And I think Teresa passes with flying colors in all of those departments, particularly as a person of character. So that's an amazing catch, for your board in this county. Her compensation package, I don't know that I need to detail that. That's in your agenda item. One thing I did want to note is that the initial term of the contract is for 5 years. And that is put there on purpose just to reinforce the desire of both parties for a long-term relationship. So with that, Mr. Chair, I think it's okay to give Teresa a chance to defend herself.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Craig, for a wonderful introduction. Chairman Toffenelli, honorable members of the board, I just want to thank you all. This has been a wonderful experience here in Calaveras County so far. It's a beautiful county with a rich history, and I look forward to continuing on the great work that Craig has already started with the strategic plan and working with you all to implement that, and the department heads and all of the employees here to make sure that we are improving the quality of life here in Calaveras, and that everyone is benefiting from the great work that Craig has started and that you've all been working on. So thank you. It's again an honor and a privilege to be here.
Thank you, Teresa. And what I'm going to do here is I have the resolution in front of me. I'm going to read the resolution down to the point where it's now therefore. And then after I read the whereases, we'll let public comment and staff if they want to speak. And we'll bring it back and vote and let the board have comments. So the resolution appointing and establishing compensation of county executive officer, whereas the Board of Supervisors seeks to appoint a county executive officer, a CEO, and whereas the board wishes to enter into an employment agreement for county executive officer services, and whereas the Board of Supervisors proposes at $101.94 per hour, $101.94 per hour, and whereas the Board of Supervisors proposes a credit of seniority of 22 years, and whereas the Board of Supervisors proposes crediting 80 hours of vacation leave time upon start date, and whereas the Board of Supervisors proposes a vacation accrual rate of 160 hours annually, and whereas the board proposes a moving allowance of $10,000 lump sum payment. So is there any board comments, questions, acclamations? Supervisor Stopper.
It's a pleasure to have you here, Ms. Hitchcock. I just want to say, we started setting the foundation this year, or this last year with Craig. We all made as a board a commitment to setting the foundation to make change and move forward more successfully. You know, as Mr. Pedro brought up, you went through a rigorous process. I'm very optimistic. You know, there was quite a few qualified candidates within that process, and it's good to see that, you know, you came through here clean to this point, and I look forward to the future. Thank you, Craig, for the process and everything you did to get us here.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Yeah, I want to echo what thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Supervisor Stopper. I agree with you. I want to express my personal gratitude to Craig as well. When he came on board, this board made a commitment, and it's one thing for a politician to make a commitment. It's another for us to actually execute on it. And we held it together and we got it done. And I'm very proud of this board for that. I'm very grateful to our staff that worked not only on the strategic plan, but worked very hard on this hiring process. So we all worked on this as a team, and the community leaders and former CAOs, you brought everybody into the tent. And I think that, you know, what we started, we're bringing forward. And Teresa, I'm really excited to have you on board. I think I'm very impressed with your qualifications, and you did a great job. And you did run the gauntlet and made it all the way through. And that says a lot. We're a good county, but it's not always easy. But we like to do what we say we're going to do. And I think this board is committed to that. So Craig, we'll thank you more thoroughly as your time wraps up. But I want to thank everybody who participated in this process across our county family to make this happen. And Teresa, welcome aboard.
Supervisor Collendorf.
First, thank you, Craig, for getting us to this point, like everyone else has said, and staff, and welcome. I'm looking forward to working with you and working through the strategic plan and all of the other projects that staff has come into the Board of Supervisors.
Supervisor Hubbard.
Yes, I just wanted to say welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And I hear that these guys are really good with helping to move. So.
And I want to echo everything that's been said, and Teresa, welcome, and Craig, thank you very much for all the work you've done. It's kind of be going down, but I can't wait for March 25th to come. and get you in the office. So. All right, we're going to open it up to public comment. Is there any public comments on this item? Bonnie Newman.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm kind of an odd bird. But y'all heard of the book Dante's Inferno? On one of the portals of hell, it says, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." I always thought I'd bring a banner and stick it out there. But there are glimmers of hope occasionally when I come here and have to blurt out my guts. New faces, a glimmer of hope. Let's hold on to that glimmer of hope longer than we've held on to some of their glimmers of hope in the past. Please. Thank you. Welcome.
Al.
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. Big welcome, Teresa. And so sad you're leaving, Craig. You've done a good job for the county.
Any other public comments? Any staff comment? Marcos?
Good morning, board. Marcos Munoz, Assistant CAO. I wanted to say welcome, Ms. Hitchcock, and I feel privileged and honored to serve under your leadership. I'm excited what the next several years hold for us. So thank you.
Good morning. Welcome. I'm Robert Packinger, Department of Public Works. I've been here for quite some time, and I think I've had on average maybe a new CAO maybe every other year, maybe every 2 years. And I'm looking forward to working with you, and I'll do everything that I can in my power to make sure that you stay for a long time. Thank you. I'd also like to thank you, Craig, for all the support. We did a lot of work together. It was a short, brief time, but I hope we had a lot of fun. Thank you very much for the support.
Judy Hawkins, HR Director. I can honestly say during the recruitment process, Craig and I kind of divided and conquered the references, and the amount of caring all of your references have for you was just overwhelming. I've never had anybody in reference, usually reference checks, they want to answer the questions quickly, get off the phone. I spent at least 45 minutes to an hour talking to each one of the references. They strongly respect you and are going to miss working for you. And John said he would come work for you. So, but no, I am looking forward to working with you, working for you. And so welcome.
Good morning, Teresa. I'm the Economic and Community Development Director, and knowing your background and actually having talked to you a few times during the COVID pandemic, I'm so thankful that you're here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking Calaveras on. And Craig, thank you for your service and your leadership.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. I'm Corey Allen, your Health and Human Services Agency Director. It's wonderful to meet you. I'm excited to be working under your leadership, and on behalf of the entire Health and Human Services Agency, we look forward to working with you.
Good morning, Kathy Gomes, Auditor Controller. I'd really like to thank Supervisors and Craig for getting us to where we are, and I am very excited to be working with you in the future. Can't wait.
Good morning, board. Craig and Teresa. Nancy Giddens, Calaveras County Library. I have been here just 7 years, but I too have seen many, many changes. And it's always very scary for me as a non-essential department to have a new CAO. So I was privileged to get to interview all of the candidates as I was one of the the department heads on the panel, and it was wonderful to hear that Teresa is accustomed to partnering with libraries for different projects. And I've said to the board and I've said to others, the library doesn't bring in much revenue, but we bring in a lot of goodwill. And we, as you know, have really tried to serve our community, especially our families and our children, and to partner with everyone, every other department as well as we can. Example being right now, we're the warming center, and we're just happy to be able to serve our community in every way. So I'm very, very thrilled that you're here and looking very much forward to working with you. And I just have no words to thank Craig for all he's done to bring us to this point. All of us are better for having had you here. So thank you very much.
Nancy, you're an essential part of the team.
We don't want to, we want to hear that non-essential thing again about the library.
Good morning, Jennifer Cashy, Director of Integrated Waste Management. First off, Craig, thank you so much for stepping in. You've just provided awesome leadership over the past 6 months, I think, about. You know, I think we can't all thank you enough for what you've done. It's been exponential. And welcome. I look forward to working with you, and everything I've heard is just wonderful, and I'm so optimistic. So welcome aboard.
Kim Craddock, Interim Chief of Probation. It's good to meet you, and I look forward to working with you in future.
I just got scolded by the chief probation. Good morning, Sheriff DiBasilio. I want to say thank you, Craig, for what you've done for us in the short time you've been here. And Teresa, I've been in the county now 44 years, been with the sheriff's office for 20 years, been the sheriff for almost 7 years now. We've gone through 7 CAOs. So I'm hoping you stick around. If you don't, I know where you live. I know where you're going to live. We will lock you in a closet and keep you around. I appreciate you coming up and filling some big shoes and continuing what Craig's doing. We appreciate it. And just remember, these 5 people on the board are very important to me, and they listen to everything that I say. So with that, welcome aboard. And thank you for the efforts that are going to be ahead of you. Thank Craig also.
Thank you, Rick.
You're essential too, Rick.
Good morning. I did not have a staff announcement this morning, but next meeting I will. Good morning, Chair, honorable board members. I rushed over here. Welcome, Teresa, to your county. We're real excited to have you. We look forward to working with you. And thank you, Craig, for what you've done for us. Whew, I had to get my breath on. So I just wanted to come over here and wish you welcome, a very warm welcome. And again, Craig, thank you. And thank you, board.
Any other staff members or any other public comments?
There's one public comment online.
Okay.
Terry, you can go ahead and talk now.
Thank you. Good morning. This is Terry McBride, Calaveras County Committee Chair and Senator of New California State, and lifelong 5th generational resident of Calaveras County. And I'd surely like to I'd surely like to, of course, the phone hasn't rang all morning. It rings now. I'd like to welcome you, Teresa. God bless you for taking this on. You are coming into an amazing county filled with amazing people. And I am quite sure you will do an amazing job. So thank you. And thank you, Craig, for all the work. I believe it was Craig, because everything is black now on my screen, for all the great work that you did in bringing her on board and everybody else that did. Thank you.
Thank you. No more? Okay, none in the room. We will bring it back to the board. Any other board comments? Hearing none, I'm open for a motion.
Supervisor Topno, I would be honored to make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Stopper. Have a second?
Supervisor Toffenelli, I would too be, I share the same honor and I'll second it.
Supervisor Garamendi. We have a motion and a second, a call for a vote. Let's do this roll call vote. Robin, we want to do a roll call vote for us?
District 1. District 2.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
District 3. District 4.
Aye.
District 5.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0.
Passed 5-0. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors, County of Calaveras hereby appoints Teresa Hitchcock as County Executive Officer and approves the above mentioned salary and benefits pursuant to the board's offer of employment. Now therefore be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors, County of Calaveras hereby approves and authorizes the chair to sign the employment agreement for the County Executive Officer Services. And welcome aboard.
Well, thank you all so much, and I'm going to try to live up to the standards that Craig has set. Clearly, he's done an outstanding job, and I hope to continue that work. So thank you, Craig. I really appreciate everything that you've done so far, and I will be picking your brain a lot.
Not much love.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for lending her to us.
Drive safe.
Thank you.
Drive safe going home. Thank you. Good job. Okay, we'll give a minute for the boardroom to clear. All right, we move on to the next item. This is general public comments. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter and jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agenda may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard. So do we have any public comments this morning? Morning, Bonnie.
Good morning. I apparently have not abandoned all hope. I'm back. And I just like to say, I've been totally engrossed in something that I've been made temporary custody of, which is a complete history of Las Calaveras. What's that? That's the bulletins for the Historical Society from its inception in Calaveras County. Couldn't believe it. Apparently about 75 years ago, 4 Grange committee members decided we don't have history. Let's start collecting it. Interviews, many stories based on as much fact as possible, but relying upon memory. 3 or 4 different versions of the same incident. It's wonderful. I've been reading this for 2 months. I'm only up to year 1974. That's when I moved here. And when I moved here, I was lucky enough to live down the street from one of those original Grange members, Miss Sadie Hunt. And her story doesn't quite match what I've heard in here. I'm going to believe her. Her story was better. You've heard them, some of them. Anyway, I read in the paper that Mr. Hubbardy had produced or allowed a presentation of something that I'm so sad I didn't get to see. And if there's another viewing, Mr. Toffanelli, could you let me know what's going to happen? Because I don't do internet. You know, and I really want to hear those stories because I'm trying to put it all together. Why I came to Calaveras, why I'm never going to leave Calaveras. My roots are here. I was not born here, but man, this stuff is good. If you've never had the opportunity, I'll loan it to you until I give it back to the Historical Society, but
I'll make sure that you get a copy. We're going to be showing you. I'll make sure you get a copy, but we're going to be showing it again in Moke Hill, and it is available online if you have a friend who has the internet access.
that's wonderful. Thank you. And keep me in mind.
Will do.
Thank you for your patience, guys.
Any other public comments? Are there any public comments online? Yes.
There is. Terry, you can go ahead and talk now.
Good morning, Terry McBride, Calaveras County Committee Chair and Senator. I wish that you guys could keep it so I can look at you while we're talking. I don't have that ability, and we're packed with snow, so I can't come down there. It's a joy to get to see Bonnie again. It's been quite a long time. What I wanted to discuss today, first, I also want to say thank you to all of our road crew, man. They have been just amazing. They worked so hard before all these crazy storms. And then they've been working so hard during and after. So a shout out. The reason I wanted to talk today is in regards to our elections. Many folks are having grave concerns as to the validity of them nationwide. Well, what can we do about that locally? We can. Within our state and our neighboring county, San Joaquin, Sheriff Winslow down there has shared in a press conference a couple of weeks ago. I hope you guys saw that. That during an investigation against a local Lodi city councilman, the degree of outright fraud that is being implemented via the DMV and voter registration, which is based on the honor system. No showing of ID. This is not our local voters registration. This is out of their hands. I have the highest regard for our local folks. They do a great job. But anyway, this is out of our hands. This is being done during the investigation. And I have done a lot of research as I have a press pass. So I've done a lot of research on myself, and I cannot believe the amount of people that are signed up via the internet. And so how do you prove that you're a US citizen when you do that? And so we want to look at the doctrine of lesser magistrate, which all of you are under, and this gives you the power to say that we need to make this change and we can do this locally. Do you know that Shasta County got rid of their electoral voting, the devices? That's gone. And we're looking to, we know other counties are looking to do the same. And I would love to see our little county. I mean, we used to go to the Mountain Ranch Town Hall and you'd see all the folks that you knew and you'd go in and you'd vote. And it was a great thing. And if we cannot take the time out of our day to vote for the proper representatives, the people that we believe will best represent us, then we've become a sad country. And our local counties have the ability to bring this back by bringing in paper ballots. I don't know on timing because the phone, this is not giving me any sort of time where I'm at. Anyway, so I would like us to look at that. We will, of course, with New California, we will be bringing back paper ballots, but why not start ahead? And in regards to New California, on Thursday, March 9, we will be having a town hall there at the Round Table Pizza in Valley Springs. I'll be taking it around via different towns in Calaveras so people don't have to drive so far. It's kind of nice. Yep.
Terry, your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, I'm emailing you guys a flyer, please.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments online?
No, there's not.
Okay. Seeing none in the room, we will move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion. Is there any board member wish to pull an item?
I do.
Supervisor Fallendorf,
Item 15 and item 16.
15 and 16. Any other board member? Seeing none, is there any member of the staff?
I have a member of the public that has their hand raised.
A member of the public, what number?
They didn't say, can I allow them to talk?
Okay, yes.
Debbie, you can go ahead and talk now if you're talking regarding consent agenda. The pulling of items. Debbie, can you hear me?
She's not there.
She wants 16.
She wanted 16?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, it's been pulled by you. Any member of the public? You need to come up to the microphone.
I'd like to see that you guys pull 16.
16, it's been pulled. Okay. All right, any other staff member, public member? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. I'm open for a motion for the remainder of the consent minus 15 and 16.
I'll move.
Motion by Supervisor Fallendorf.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We'll go back to item number 15. Supervisor Fallendorf, you pulled this item?
Yes, in talking to Robert, I'm asking to have this moved to the next meeting.
Yes.
So Robert and I can continue some questions that I had.
I don't have a problem with it. Any board member have a problem with moving this item?
It's 15, right?
Yeah.
15, yeah. No?
Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Item 15 will be moved to the next agenda, which is March 14th. We'll move on to item 16. Again, Supervisor Fallendorf, you pulled 16.
I pulled it for members of the public.
Okay, this is an integrated waste management.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Board members, Jennifer Cashy, Director of Integrated Waste Management. You have before you a contract with Geologic Associates. They are our design consultants for not only phase 3 expansion, but also any design needs we may have at Red Hill, closed landfill, and at Rock Creek. So I think it's important to preface this conversation with one, this is not just a phase 3 design contract. And this really is a very comprehensive contract for all design needs that we may need within integrated waste. It also is important to preface that this does not change phase 3 budget at all. This is not affecting the phase 3 budget. I'm going to kind of go through and explain some of the reasons why I'm requesting an increase to this contract. Is we had a first amendment that was done in March of 2022. This amendment zeroed out some of the budgeted items. So those tasks that we zeroed out, those funds were allocated to different tasks. For instance, a JTD revision, master planning components to it. So essentially, we kind of robbed Peter to pay Paul within the contract. So that was done in March 2022. Additionally, we had some permitting components that came up when we were going through our phase 3 permitting. So we had some additional compliance components that required the contract it needed to be built into that contract. During the March revision, the CQA component of it was swept to allocate to different tasks. So again, this is bringing the contract current to the already proposed budget for phase 3. So with the amendment of this that I'm requesting, it's basically refunding those budgeted tasks that we had swept in March of 2022. In addition, this is a result of my collaborating with our consultants and our regulatory agencies and forecasting for the next 2 fiscal years of any potential regulatory upgrades that we would need to have for our Red Hill closed landfill with our surface impoundment, any components with Rock Creek outside of phase 3. And this is also incorporated into this contract is the new landslide that we experienced during this last storm. So again, this is a real comprehensive, it took some work to really identify potential issues that we may see in the next 2 fiscal years. I felt it was advantageous to incorporate all these potential design needs, generating awareness and really supporting responsible planning looking into the next 2 fiscal years. Again, phase 3 budget is not being affected by this. This is not what the purpose of this contract is, or excuse me, the purpose of the request for increase. It was merely to fund those components, those tasks that we swept in March 2022 and forecasting for future potential design needs at Red Hill closed landfill and Rock Creek.
Thank you for that explanation.
I was also going to pull this item. Some questions. You say this isn't going to affect our phase 3 budget.
That's correct.
That's an increase by $1.2 million. How does that not affect our budget?
So the proposed budget that I had already brought forward to you with the design specs and plans, that's incorporated into this contract. So this contract, that approved budget amount that we already discussed is not changing based upon this contract. The CQA component in this that is for phase 3 is also in this contract. So what the additional tasks within this needs to be funded. So looking at future design needs and refunding, or excuse me, funding those amounts that were zeroed out in 2022.
Okay, when we talk about those amounts that you were talking about in 2022, they were outside the original contract that had been bid on. So you said you swept those to fill it back in earlier.
No, so we expanded on the master planning component of this contract to incorporate a JTD revision and some other items. And so, which was absolutely, within the scope of this contract, it was able to do that. So that's why that amendment took place.
No, it's just, how does additional increase by $1.2 million not affect the budget?
It's not affecting the phase 3 budget is what it's not affecting our phase 3 project budget. I wanted to be clear on that.
If I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the funds have already been budgeted for, this is increasing the contract amount, but the funds have already been budgeted. So this is not changing the budget, it's changing the contract.
That is correct. Yes.
Any other questions? I just have a question, and maybe you said, but I wasn't clear. Why did we remove the tasks back in last March, and now this March we're putting the task back in, and have they increased? Was that money for those tasks that we removed last March? Was that cost less than the 1.2 that we're now putting in for these tasks?
Well, the current administration at the time felt like that was the best option, was to reallocate those funds to different tasks.
Have they increased? Is this more than what was budgeted for those original tasks in March?
There is an increase in the request. Yes, it has increased. This increase, it funds those tasks again. And then with the additional forecasting and potential design needs, that also increased the request to increase this contract.
So then my next question would be, given this, is this the last we're going to see of phase 2 that you know of today, unless something emergency comes up this will complete what we need to get done to move into phase 3 and construction?
This completes phase 3 and I'm looking 2 years out.
Okay.
I felt like it was advantageous for us to have conversation, do some appropriate planning, looking into the future. And some of these may not need to be done from a regulatory standpoint, but these are conversations that I'm having with our agencies to look at our surface impoundment. What do you see for the next 2 years that potentially we could get ourselves, that we would need to increase or modify our structures.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So you've done this and now you're bringing it back to the board so that we can move forward with everything you've already gotten done.
Nothing's been done,
Oh, so
Supervisor
you haven't-
Stopper.
You talked about the 2 years looking out and you felt it was advantageous to move forward with that. That's not been done?
I am not, no, those projects have not been completed. Those are in discussion. I had those discussion with the regulatory agencies
Understood.
to identify potentials.
Okay, we're at the beginning of that step.
Absolutely. And this is identification
2 years.
and yes, so none of it, and then again, this is design.
Apologies, Jennifer. It came with the way it came out originally. I thought you had already done it. So
No, none
that's
of
where
these
my
have been
confusion lies.
completed.
Thank you.
None of these completed. And again, these are design work.
Correct.
No modifications have taken place. We would still have to go through that process. This is securing that we have that in place and having this conversation.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other board comments?
How did this fit in with any of the, going back to what Gary was saying, a thing coming back, how did this apply into any pending or future work that's gonna be done just with phase 3? It's still gonna be separated?
Well, this contract, the way it was drafted in 2020, has phase 3 design and many other design components built into it. So as we move forward, this will expire in 2025. So after 2025, phase 3 is going to be complete. I'm sure we'll have another contract that will come back that will delineate appropriately what our potential general design needs may be in the future. But maybe I'm not understanding what your question is.
With the fee study stuff.
That has nothing to do with this contract.
Okay. Okay, that, I just want to make sure that's clear. The 2 separate things going on and we're not gonna, then at no point going to, crossover.
No, it's very separate. This is
Okay.
just design work
Okay.
for integrated
Sorry.
waste.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Mhm.
No other board comments? Open up to public comment. Is there public comments on this item? I'll get back to online. We'll do it in the room first.
Good morning. Mary Beth Hospital, Cal Waste, also a resident of the county for 37 years. I'm not sure which hat I'm wearing right now, but I'm pretty passionate about what's going on here. A couple questions that I have. Thank you, Jennifer, for clarifying that. And I'm so happy to see that the board's asking questions about this because when we came here in 2013, the main goal was to be partners and have transparency. And I feel like there has been some of that, but I feel like that's been lost over time. And I really want to see that we get back there because at the end of the day, again, this is my home and I do work here, but at the end of the day, it's my home and it's been my home for 37 years. So a couple of the questions I have are, and Amanda, you just kind of asked that, was the study with GBB right now. Okay, that's not supposed to be back to the board till April. If I'm not correct, it might be a different date, the end of April. Okay, that is a comprehensive study of where the landfill is at. That needs to be looked at. It's like the cart is before the horse. Why aren't we looking at that first before we're moving forward, spending more money with a consultant? Yes, I understand that there are things that need to be done with the well and that sort of thing, but this is another $1.2 million that the county is spending. One, where's that money coming from? Okay, maybe it's coming out of IWM, but at the end of the day, as a resident of this county, I am concerned about my taxes. I have property here. I have family here. My brother has a business here. Those property taxes, that money has to come from somewhere. Please, somebody just tell us where it's going to come from. It's not going to come out of thin air. And that is one concern. You guys just spent $178,000, $200,000 for this GBB consultant to come look and take a take a look at your landfill. Wouldn't it behoove you to just wait and see before we spend more money? My other question is, you talk about looking into the future. Again, you can't look into the future until you know what's there right now. So looking ahead, that's all great, but why don't we look and see what's in front of us? Why don't we look and see what the state of the landfill is now? I'd love to know if any of you sitting there know the actual state of the landfill. Where are we? My other question is, or comment, I guess you could say, is back in March of 2020, okay, there was, you guys awarded Geologic this contract for a 5-year term not to exceed $1.3 million. 2 years later, we're back here with amendments to that. And now fast forward to 2023, and you guys are asking, there's another $1.2 million being thrown at this project. Again, I'm sure there's logic behind this, but I just want to say, please, let's stop. Let's take a look at this. Let's work together. That is the only thing Cal Waste has asked for, to be transparent and to work with you guys. Another concern I have is the solid waste task force. This is an issue here. And the solid waste task force has decided to meet quarterly.
Your time's up.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Any other public comments? We have one online if there's none in the room. Robin?
Debbie, if you'd like to talk now, you can unmute yourself.
Is she on mute, maybe?
I've unmuted her and asked her to
No,
unmute
maybe her
herself.
line at where she's at.
Yeah, I think where she's at, she's muted. But she has the ability to unmute herself.
Pardon me?
She does have the ability to unmute herself.
Okay, can she hear us? Can you ask her to unmute herself? At least let's give her all options here before.
Debbie, if you can hear us, can you unmute yourself or join by phone? You have the options under the microphone to switch to phone audio.
You do show her online though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sent her a message. Hopefully
Yeah,
she'll see it.
no. Okay, well, we gave her every chance we could, so. All right, if there's no other public comments, Jennifer, you want to come up and maybe answer a couple of those questions that were asked by Mary Beth?
Sure, and making sure there was any other additional questions that came up after public comment by the board. I think it's important to remember that this isn't this is not increasing the project expense. This is again forecasting for potential needs. This is not throwing more money at the phase 3 project. This is looking forward for what potential needs are. And I do look forward to GBB coming back with their review report in April, as she stated. And if there's any other questions that the board has, I'm happy to answer them.
Supervisor Stopper.
The potential for $1.2 million is absolutely an extra cost, no matter how you go about it. It may not be there quite yet, but any engineer firm you put this in front of will fill that up with every opportunity they have if we give it to them. But when it comes to the solvency issue that was brought up, I have a understanding on that. We do have capital assets that are separate from IWM in the county that we have made a dedication to locate to that so that we can continue the functionality of the landfill so that we can move forward. The solvency issue, when it comes to the study that comes in at the end of April, should have been something we started at the very day we brought the landfill forward, and should have been done all along by every board of supervisors, including us, till this day, so that we can remain solvent. But it's something that wasn't done. And, we're on a short runway, so, in the interest of the people in county and success and maintaining that, we as a board have put those capital assets aside to back IWM. And then we are moving forward with that solvency issue with the landfill so that we can move forward in the future with a broad understanding of what the actual cost is and continue moving forward with solvency in the future. Fix what our mistakes are in the past. You're right, the cart sort of before the horse, but it's not really our choice now, but to solve the issue and move forward with it in the best interest of all the people for the county. That's my understanding. But
Any other board comments? All right, well, I'm open for a motion for item number 16.
So moved.
A motion by Supervisor Stopper,
I'll second.
second by Supervisor Hubbard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're going to move on to the regular agenda, but before we do, we're going to allow a 5-minute break for Public Works to set up for their PowerPoint presentation on their CIP projects. All right, we are back and we are back for item number 22. This is an informational item only. It's a receiver presentation of the draft 2023 Calaveras County Department of Public Works 5-year capital improvement program. And Robert, you're up.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. This is our annual capital improvement program presentation from Public Works. Before I get started, let me let you know there that we passed out packets for each of you, and the packet includes a paper copy of the presentation, the capital improvement program, a list of completed projects, and also my last report where we discuss some of our ongoing activities. So this capital improvement program presented to you right now is a draft. We will, after your input, bring it back to the board in March sometime to get it adopted. So we'll have a few items to discuss today with this capital improvement program presentation. We'll discuss the revenue sources. We'll go back and let you know the construction projects that we've completed. We'll look forward to this year's paving program and just a general review of the projects that we're going to be hoping to deliver this coming year, and then get your opportunity for your input. Of course, since after this meeting, we'll probably be collecting further input until a point where we could bring it back for adoption. So the revenue sources. There are two sources of revenue for most of the work in Public Works. There's discretionary revenue. This discretionary revenue is not tied to any specific project. So that's what we use mostly for the maintenance and operations of Public Works in general. We have the highway users tax account, the regional surface transportation program funding, the local transit occupancy tax, and all of those funds go straight to our maintenance, purchasing materials, so forth and so on, our operations. Then we have the restricted revenue funds. Those funds, of course, the federal grants, the state grants, our MRA, that's the SB1 funding that we use for the paving program. We also have RIM funds and benefit basin funds. Those funds can only be used on the projects that are within the list for each program. So RIM funds on that list is the Wagon Trail project. So Wagon Trail can receive RIM dollars. What's missing there, interesting to note, because I get this and staff gets this comment quite often from the public, is that they pay taxes and the taxes pay our salary, and we don't get funding in the regular taxes from the folks. So that's a very tiny percent of that. So most of the funding, of course, comes, like I said, state, federal funds. Overall funding. Okay, so over the next 5 years, you can see that's 74 million bucks, a large number. From last year's presentation to this year, there was a 9% decrease in that funding number, but that number is going to fluctuate every year as we deliver projects. For example, Butte Fire projects, we deliver those. That was 2 million bucks worth of projects. The Shad Road project is completed. That's 3.4 million. Wagon Trail is over $20 million project. It's contained in our CIP. It's in the plans and so forth and so on. Once that is delivered, there's going to be a reduction then in the CIP plan of $20 million. And we have in the plan the ATP project. That's $9 million for Pope Street. Again, once in years from now, that is delivered, that is $9 million less in the CIP. We are always actively looking for grant opportunities to fill in and continue funding the program for other projects. One thing I should say about that, about the funding, the dollars don't necessarily translate to the level of effort that we in the department are performing in terms of the work. Wagon Trail is pretty big, but there's the contractor takes quite a bit of that funding. There's still a lot of effort on our part behind the scenes working, but there are smaller projects here with less dollar amounts that, boy, they sure take a lot of our time, a lot of staff's time to work on those projects. So we're always that's that dollar amount, like I was saying, just doesn't translate equally to that level of effort. Okay, next, please. So here's a list of the items of the projects that were completed this year. I passed out a list there of those projects that compares a little bit easier with what was presented in the 2022 CIP projects. And so most of those were, I would say the bulk of that was delivered. There were a couple of projects there that we had the prep work done last year. That was the plan, to get the prep work done on some of those Arnold roads, with the final paving work to be done this year. Last year we had, in terms of just those paving projects, over 20 miles of work that was done. That number will fluctuate, of course, because there's going to be some projects that we do that are more expensive to do. And so there will be less of a length of roadway that we can accomplish with the same dollar amount. So that number fluctuates every year, up and down. We could put in striping, but that's covering quite a number of miles of roads there for striping. This, I just wanted to show you, or let you know in this case, that just in terms of paving, it was over 20 miles of work that we did. That picture there, that I just, that's Shad Road. That's out in District 2. That bridge was completed this last year. These projects, construction was actually completed. Blagan, Canyon View, Gwin Mine, construction was actually completed the year before last, but I put them in as complete because this was when we submitted the paperwork to FEMA. At that point, we considered the work to be complete. There's extensive amount of reporting and documentation that needs to be submitted to them, so that then they can process that and we get the reimbursement. The pie chart's just a little visual so you can see how what percentages we're doing these expenditures. Bridges, there are 8 bridges, but you can see the pretty big slice of pie. That's because of the expense of that work. Each bridge is a couple $1 million to construct and more to design and environmental and so forth and so on. So those are expensive items. The little red slice there is our consider our safety projects. That would be the RSSA project, guardrail replacement. We have a thermoplastic striping that will be placed on certain sections of the road. Hopefully that will help us, help the drivers see the road easier when the striping on the road reflects easier to them. The Murphy's Lighting District project is in here. High friction surface treatment, that's a project that will be done on a few curves that are problematic for the drivers. The Valley Springs School and the Pope Street project is included under the safety pie. We have improvements, very large piece of the pie there, but few projects, Wagon Trail, SR 26 at Garner Place, the Clean California. Of course, that Wagon Trail project being so expensive makes that pie piece look very large. That's the green figure, the green piece. And then we have the road preservation, which is all of our paving projects. Okay. The way we plan for this paving project every year is to continue the cycle that was started years ago when Josh Pack was Director of Public Works. The cycle started and it's going around geographically throughout the various supervisorial districts. So this coming year, 2023 will be in Supervisorial District 2, and then we're moving back down to 1 and 5 in 2024. So we continue to follow that pattern around. So go ahead. The paving recommendations are included there for this 2023 year. As I said, this is draft, so we're still refining a little bit some of those road segments that are noted there, and this is for the District 2 area. Okay. So how are the paving projects chosen? We've talked in the past about this Calaveras County Pavement Management Report and the Pavement Condition Index. That is I want to delve into that PCI a little bit more. What is done to determine the PCI is a couple people drive all these roads. One guy's driving, one guy has a notebook, and they're looking at the road, and they're looking at cracks in the road, at the severity of the cracks, at the frequency of the cracks, any other distress in the pavement. They look at location. They look at a little bit of traffic data. Is it heavily traveled? Is it not heavily traveled? Is it residential? Is it things like that? They're looking at all that kind of stuff. But the important thing are the cracks. They do look at rutting and potholes, but what they do then is they fill in this chart as they're going by, and they'll say, okay, there's cracking here. That looks like it's medium severity. Maybe this is high severity in that area. And that's a large area or that's a small area. They fill out this chart. They put numbers to that chart, and you get a PCI at the end when you look at the equation and the chart that they do. So we have a number. The number of the, on the PCI, best is 100, that's a newly paved road. Failure is 25. Anything in between tells you different things. But that's, again, just a number. It's good information to begin with. It helps us to determine if we are in a pretty good pavement. We don't need to worry about that pavement so much. We focus on fair to good pavements, which with PCI, that's less. but it doesn't tell us how to treat the problem. So the problem with our pavements, especially the most important part, which is the cracking, there are two forms of cracking that happen. So we have age-related cracking and we have stress-related cracking. And depending on what we have, the treatment's going to be different. So I'm sure you've seen the pavement after it's been down on the ground for a while. It starts to change color. It's gray. It's oxidizing. The asphalt is losing its binding properties. So in the heat, it wants to crack. And in the cold, it wants to crack. So that those temperature changes cause cracking in this aged pavement. And that type of cracking starts from the surface and works its way down. And so when we come up with a strategy to repair that type of distress, we usually grind from the top down, maybe a couple inches. The rest of the pavement's okay. And then we come in and we could do some sort of seal on top of that pavement, and that extends the life of the pavement. That oxidation is taken care of to some extent. The other type of cracking that we have has to do with distress, heavy loads on the pavement. That type of cracking starts from the bottom up. If we see that type of cracking, we have to go in all the way to the bottom, repair all that, bring the asphalt back up. And that's, of course, a more expensive repair. But that happens. We have to look at every section of road to see what's the best treatment. We know, for example, Pool Station Road or Burns Ferry Road, they have a lot of heavy loads on those roads. And so we kind of could understand the type of distress and the type of work we need to do in there. Residential roads, they don't have that kind of heavy load. They're older roads, so we could probably take care of those with less intrusive methods. One thing that you probably know, having the history of our roads here, is that many of our roads don't have an adequate base. They're ancient roads with pavement on top of patches, which may be on top of dirt. So that's what we encounter in a lot of these situations. That happened extensively up in District 2. We had to rebuild all that for the Butte Fire work. And Hunt Road is one of those roads like that. It's just patch on top of patch. Okay, so that information, the PCI information, is useful for getting us started with determining what roads we're going to pick. But we also get from my Calaveras public reporting the old way of doing things. In other words, the squeaky wheel. People are letting us know, and that then focuses our attention to a certain area. We have our road crews out and about, always looking at roads and providing us input with what we should be taking care of. Once we come up with a list of items, or we get an area that we want to work on, our superintendent, our field crews, consultants could be used, staff can be used. We reach out to you to make sure that we're dialing these things in the right way and approaching the project with the best service for the residents. Once the work is done, you may remember a few years ago, we had that discussion of dig once policy because people were, the utilities were coming in and doing their work. So we are now aggressively partnering with the utilities, trying to make sure that we minimize the cuts into our newly reconstructed pavement. Sometimes that's necessary, so be it, we understand, but we do have criteria for what they need to do in terms of repairing the roads once they cut into the roads, whether it's a newly paved road or something that's old. And that's in the utility encroachment standards now. These projects are the projects that we hope to deliver this year. Other than just the paving projects, every year we have the striping project. We need to do that work every year. That's when we hope to capture Old Bering Story Roads, Center Lane, and different things that we've done. State Route 4 Wagon Trail is ongoing. The Railroad Flat Road intersection realignment, that's a slide that happened from, I believe, the 2019 storms. And we finally have the funding from FHWA to proceed with realigning that intersection slightly so that we don't have to deal with that huge slope. Those projects are all identified within the CIP plan. In the delivery of our work, we have various partners. Of course, the Council of Governments, one of our prime partners. They provide funding to various projects that we have. We had recently, with the call for projects, applied for the funding through them, and we are getting the CMAQ and some regional surface transportation program funding for the Valley Springs School. There's also, I believe, a small amount for the Pope Street project. You may remember when we had the discussion for the call for projects that we presented something like 14 projects. The construction ones, they could only support the top one, but there were various planning projects included in that list of projects that we discussed. And the COG is actively pursuing funding some of those planning projects, including the bike pedestrian plan that in this time would include the trails that we had discussed at that time. We partner also with local utilities tremendously. We don't want them to come into the situation that once we come into a project that we've completed, that they have to come in and do their works. This last year, we had extensive partnering, I guess you can say, collaboration with CCWD. They had projects on Old Bering Story Road almost at the same time that we were doing our project. So we were able to work between the two of us so that the paving project came in and only had to pave one time, as opposed to us paving and then they coming in and repave or redoing what they had to do to put in their line. So we worked in cooperation, and the same contractor was able to do the work and cover the utility project and our project. Of course, California Department of Transportation is a partner. Yeah, sometimes good and sometimes they give us a lot of work, but they're a partner. We thank them for their support too. So in summary, we continue to move forward with the CIP. This CIP is probably the first one that we have with very little disaster recovery work in it. With the One Railroad Flat Road project, all that other work has been delivered. Next year's CIP will probably have some projects in it from this last storm last month. Some of those will be ongoing. They'll show up there. And again, this comes to you every year around January, December timeframe. We're a little behind this year, but that January storm kind of kept us busy with dealing with those things, and we're still dealing with those. Last point there, we continue to look for grant opportunities. They come around from the state and federal government. We're always looking for those. Okay, I'd like to thank everyone that's actually doing the work. I have Jen, Kelly, and Mark, and they have extensive staff under them that are all involved in delivering all of these projects and the maintenance projects that Public Works does. Thank you.
Board comments, input, Supervisor Stopper?
Few things you brought up, Robert, the PCI. So this is our basically pavement control. We know what the study is, how bad a road is, prioritization, everything.
Right.
How are you going about doing that right now?
In 2019, there was a report prepared for all of the roads. We're still working off of that report. And we will be updating that report here in the next year or so to
Things change, over years,
To-
more environmental damage or whatever else.
correct.
Right.
And then, of course, the improvements.
That's the answer I was looking for. Absolutely. Yeah. And we improved some roads
Yeah.
along the way. Okay. Thank you for that. With that, you brought up there's a certain amount of fund reduction. I forget what that number was right off the top of my head, but like 9% or something, I think you brought up. Is that reduction in SB1 funds?
No, sir.
Okay.
That reduction, it just has to do with the presentation of what we do. We have
What you have on the list.
the whole list. There's the dollar amount. We
So we
deliver a
had-
bunch of projects. And
So the SB1 funding hasn't gone down in this time for now.
Correct.
That's subject to change. Okay, that's good. That's good news. With all these, I still have a map of that study for the Greater Rancho area. That shows like the condition of the roads and everything. And when we went over this in the past, we prioritized these roads, not necessarily by the worst road, because sometimes those costs on that worst road were so exponentially more that we could save other roads from getting to that point and stretch our dollars further. So are we still working underneath that thought process?
that concept has not changed.
Very good. So, with all intentions, I mean, things have, things change and we, working contracts at the same time. Our intent, you kind of have the intention here working in certain areas for the most part. I see a little spread out in 2024 between Coppers and Rancho and everything. I mean, those are satellited out. But the intention from what I originally understood from years ago was that when we move forward with projects, let's say we have CSA 1 roads, for example, and then we also have county roads in the area. Now, things out of our control kind of changed that a little bit so that we did county roads and then we did CSA 1 roads at 2 different times. But our intention moving forward is to do kind of the same ones in the same area at the same time so that we could stretch our dollar further with contractors generally, because we can get a lower bid, bringing all those underneath one umbrella at one time within an area, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so, with it not necessarily, out of our control, but that not necessarily happened in the past, we plan on moving forward in that direction with, considering that not everything's underneath our control.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm glad that we aren't finalized on this. We can go over it. I would love to be able to go over this list because it's a pretty comprehensive list, at least for my district and everything. I don't know. I see a little too much going on over in District 1 in 2023, but I don't want to get reprimanded by my parents for trying to take away from them.
District 1? Wait, you mean District 2?
District 2.
Because there's not much going on in District.
I was, no, there was quite a bit going on in District 2, but District 2 waited, they waited their fair turn. So I'll let that go. No, there's a pretty comprehensive list here. I'd love to go over it, discuss a few things that were maybe taken out in the past. And then also, you brought up, working with other agencies like in Copperopolis, they had something going at the same time. Something that's been discussed in the past, and I would like to bring, have brought back before the board is a lot of times if these special districts are doing something and we're able to work with them at the same time is seed money. So that we can stretch our dollars farther on other roads and they can have a part of the cost because they're doing part of the work at the same time. They save money, we save money, we could allocate money someplace else and make it go further, go further someplace else. I think that's a good idea. I think it's something that was considered before and we need to take another look at it.
If you go back to that slide showing how we make sure that the pavement is repaired, well, you could see that in your slides. On that chart, one of the options is that seed money that you discussed.
Right. It's an option, but it's not really one of our policies that we've used extensively to this point.
Yes.
Right. I would like to see that, me as one would like to see that happen more often if we can do it. I think it's beneficial to everyone from my perspective. Yeah, love to take a deeper dive into this. I got my map still. I'd like a bigger map of my district just because there's roads that I'm not on there. I like to see the levels of those, compare a little bit. I just, a lot of them in my district, when it comes to the county roads, we're waiting on other entities to do work on them. And my hardship with that is how long are we going to wait for them to get their stuff straight to get it done? We've been waiting years on a lot of these projects that they intend to do, maybe with some of those, we should put a deadline on them because there's a significant, $246,000 here I'm looking at. Not all those are on that list, but they're to be determined in my district. And most of them are on that list for that very reason. I think in the future that, it's like, look, we can only wait so long to bring these roads up. So you need to get your work done so we can get our work done.
Yes, when we start itemizing what those roads are, we will be working with you and putting that plan together.
Thank you, Robert. Some
Thank
good
you.
answers. I appreciate that.
Any other board comments, questions? Supervisor Hubbard?
Yes, I'd like to say some of the statistics that were in your packet were actually quite surprising. Safety, I think, is a huge issue. And I'd love to see that piece of the pie grow a little bit if we could.
Yes, sir. We
Also,
will.
if I could take the opportunity, I just want to thank your whole department. You've been amazing to work with. I really appreciate all the work that you've done. And I've had a lot of calls commending the county on the roads up in the snow areas this season. So thank you.
Thank you.
Does it have to do with snow removal?
That's
because I think there's more coming.
We need to also thank our field guys for actually facilitating that, not just everyone in the office.
Yes.
Field crew 24/7. Any other board comments? You're gonna wait for me? I just have a couple questions. Robert, one is on your 2023 schedule construction. High friction surface treatment, and you had a list of roads in there that was on there. What is that? What does that mean? Is it preventative for cracking or what is it? Can you explain that?
Okay, what happens is we have a high accident rate on some curves on our roads. And what we're trying to do is increase the friction so that the tires, as they go around these curves, grab onto the road a little bit easier. So there are some curves. It's a grant program that was given to us. Now, if you want more information, Kelly, that's under one of your projects.
I don't really have a lot to add. It's basically the addition of a skid resistant treatment to the curves. So curves that are historically people are flying off the road, they'll add that treatment and it'll help keep people on the road a little bit better. So it's a safety measure.
And I need to talk to you sometime here, both of you, about some of the roads you have listed, because here's my concern. once people realize they can go faster around that curb because they have more traction and more grip, it's gonna maybe increase the speeds in some of these roads that I have complaints that the speeds need to go down. So I'd like to have some conversations on that, on some of the roads listed in my district that are on here for that treatment.
Yes.
Okay, all right. The other question is, I'm looking at your CIP budget summary that you had, and it wasn't on the presentation there, but it was on what we got in our board packet. And one is when you're talking about doing bridges and roads and being reimbursed, that's all good, but where's the money coming from in order to do the initial work to be in reimbursed fund? Are we nowhere on here do I see RIM mentioned, even on the CIP budget summary, RIM funds being used, and I know they're being used on the wagon trail project. And there's one item in here called special revenue funds of 154,000 that I don't know what special revenue funds are, so where that's coming from.
Okay, for the financial question, I will ask Mark to answer those.
Mr. Financial Guy.
The special revenue fund mentioned there that was utilized was the Milton Jenny Lind fund that was used for the portion of Milton Road.
Okay.
So that's from the quarry that's out there that pays into that special revenue fund for the maintenance of that road. So we pulled that money to use that for that project. As far as our other CIP projects for reimbursement, we have a specific budget unit for capital improvement projects. We charge all of our costs to that budget unit, and then we seek the reimbursement to that budget unit from Caltrans through our invoicing. At the end of the year, we work with the auditor's office to zero that out through posting accounts receivables, so that fund is clear at the end of the year, and then we receive the accounts receivables posted to that throughout the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Okay. And then the RIM fund, I
RIM
don't see anywhere.
RIM we don't have any current commitments to RIM. I think we have some money that has been approved by the board for use with Wagon Trail. But other than that, we don't touch the RIM fund unless and until we come to the board and get approval for utilization of those funds, with the exception of the disaster recovery loans. But those are approved by the board also.
So shouldn't that amount be included in this schedule? Since we are going into, I mean, as we go into the years like next year, 23, 24, you have all those years listed here, but you don't have anything on RIM for the Wagon Trail project. So where we're at and how much it's going.
So there is some money programmed in there in the CIP pro forma for Wagon Trail funds that are going to be utilized for out of RIM in the coming years. I think we're like $1.9 million is programmed in there. But beyond that, that's all that's currently approved by the board for use on that project.
Okay.
And the reason being is we're trying to use other people's money first.
Okay.
Once that is done.
I don't disagree with you.
Always.
Okay. Supervisor Fallendorf.
Okay. You done?
Go ahead.
Okay, so going off of Gay's question on the whim, well, I know we're trying to seek other funding and we're working with our partners with Caltrans to and the CTC to go after some of those funds with Wagon Trail, but my concern is we've only secured the 4.5 million and we still have right-of-way acquisitions and other things that are needed, and I am concerned because with the loan that is out still and not repaid, and I know that the ongoing with multiple department heads working to try and get that money back, I just worry as we go into the phase 2 into 24, 25 and 26, we don't know when we're going to get those types of funding and what cycle from Caltrans and or the CTC, if we're even lucky at that level. Are we going to be able, like Gary said, to monitor that RIM with so many other projects coming in, and is it going to impact? Because I do not want to see us having our hand tied and we don't have that money for phase 2.
Yes.
To carry us over.
Right now with that 4.5 million, that should get us with design, a lot of the environmental work. and of course, the preparation for the right-of-way work. We're always hoping that showing progress on those elements will open the door for more funding coming from the state or even the federal government. We are planning that project will receive some federal dollars. So our efforts for keeping track of all the paperwork and everything is a high level of effort. But we have, with the 4.5 million right now, enough money for a few years worth of work, a couple years worth of work, to get us in a position where we can ask for more money. Hopefully we don't use RIM. That's the point. We're trying not to use RIM.
Yes, and that is the goal. It just, as you go through these negotiations, as we've seen over the last couple of years, we don't have any control in what that might direct us to. And even anything outside of what we get awarded, county is still responsible for meeting the bottom line of what the difference is from what we get.
Yes.
And so I just want to be conscientious because we haven't even finished phase one and we're eating into those dollars. And now we're going to go looking into phase two, and we haven't, as an entirety, as a board, haven't we committed what we're spending down from that already allocated.
No right-of-way work is going to be done under this project that we've awarded the agreement, the contract for the design. There's no right-of-way work in that contract at all. So we stop once we get design and environmental and all of that done. We stop if we must, if we don't have the funding for moving forward.
But that's not what we committed to the CTC. I don't know. That's not what I remember, that we would be stopped. We were making sure it was earmarked out of room, so we didn't stop.
We do have, there's some portion of money that we have earmarked from the RIM, that is correct. But that $4.5 million that we have is for the PSNE work. We have the agreement with the state that was approved. They put that in there. So everyone understands what the 4.5 million is for.
I'm not talking about what we've already been awarded. I'm talking about the additional potentially out of limb that we are supposed to earmark so there wasn't any stops.
Well, currently right now with the project, the way phase two is going, we're trying to position ourselves so that we can get that additional money to complete the right of way and then move on to construction. We'll have to talk further later about those details.
Yeah, that's not the conversations I remember being had
I
before
want
we
to make
went to
sure
CDC.
out of the $4.5 million that we got earmarked, that we have a shovel-ready project. That was what we were going for, that so that we could go seek federal and state funding with a shovel-ready project for that 4.5 million. Now, if you're telling me you're not going to have a shovel-ready project with that 4.5, we need to do it now because we don't need to stop. And the other thing was we were going to get access, so we didn't run into so we environmentalists can go in and we don't run into what we ran into phase one, where we had to wait until we started construction and find all these artifacts and everything else. We were supposed to be able to go into what this design was in there and hopefully get permission from the property owners to find all that stuff prior, so it doesn't hold us up like it's happening right now. And it was my understanding that 4.5 million was going to do all of that. And if it's not, we need to talk about that so we can get that. We want a shovel-ready project. When we get funding for phase two, we can go get funding for it and we can just move forward to complete the whole thing, phase one and phase two, and be done with this project.
Yeah. The access that they want to have for that phase two of the project, that's happening now. There will be letters going out maybe in about a month or so to the landowners requesting access so that they can start doing their work for the environmental and archaeological and all that kind of stuff. So that's in process.
And the $1.9 million from RIM that we allocated was for the entire project. It wasn't specifically for if you don't use it all in phase one or whatever, is my understanding. Yeah, use it in phase one if you have to, but it can cover the whole project. And so we can use, if we have some of that left and we need some money to complete this shovel-ready project that the 4.5 doesn't cover, which we talked that it was supposed to. We don't want to stop, Robert, but we want this shovel-ready project that we can go to the state and federal government like we did with phase one and say, here it is. And we're first in line to get the money, because it's not something that still has to do this and develop that, and environmental has to be done. I mean, that's how we got in on phase one with the state. And we're looking to do the same thing with phase two.
Yes, perhaps there's something that I lost there in the translation, but yes, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, all right.
Okay, yes, that is. Thank you. Okay, and then I have additional questions outside of Wagon Trail. So I see CSA 4 paving program. I'm a little concerned about what is proposed in this, primarily because there is a CSA meeting with with them next month to discuss and have a conversation about expectation, what do we know, and get the feedback from constituents. So I'm just a little worried of adopting this current plan ahead of going into a CSA 4 meeting next month. And possibly having different feedback. So I just want to make sure that this isn't something that's locked in stone, and it can be part of the discussion next month when I meet with the constituents, but I am just worried about this if there's no feedback from them at this time.
Those are, I believe, 2024 future roads. And I believe that we made the statement that those could change.
Okay. Okay, so it can be modified.
Yes.
Okay.
Perhaps it would have been clear if we put various, but that's something that was already on the plans from way back when. We just wanted to keep it going.
Okay. And then the other question, and I know I sound like a broken record. I know you're working on the smaller bridges around the county, and thank you for that. But going back to the major bridges in the county, are there any opportunities in the future that, even if it's from a maintenance standpoint, to get especially a Burns Ferry and Pitt Ferry? And I know there is agreement with Swanee County, but in speaking with the county supervisor over there, trying to figure out how we maximize our dollars to get some of these things accomplished on the bridges.
Well, we haven't had any current conversations, but a few years ago when we were involved in that, trying to find funding for that was over a $70 million project for that bridge, with something like a 10% local match. And at the time, coming up with a 10% local match for that bridge was very difficult. We had conversations that perhaps that could be in the rim, that might give it a chance. Our traffic studies that took a look at that said, well, only local traffic from Copperopolis uses that bridge, so it wouldn't be in the rim. But we're going to look at the rim program again now that the circulation element has been done. We'll start perhaps late in the year to do another evaluation of the rim program and look at those projects again and see what fits. That's a multi-year project that will take place, and we'll have to have public comments and meetings with you. But we're not going to do that right now. We'll do it. Perhaps that'll be something that we could tackle on late in the year. And at that time, bringing up that the cost of that Old Ferry Road Bridge can be discussed.
Yeah, no, it just with all the infrastructure and the other things that Gary and I have been working on, it just rather positioning the county in a position when those funds become available again, even from a maintenance standpoint, to at least prepare to get that other money out there. And we're not even in a standing to apply or qualify for any of those funds. And so I'm just concerned about that. If we push this out, what is that bridge gonna look like, either bridge gonna look like in 10 to 15 years? And we haven't prepared or planned to do any of those maintenance.
Okay.
And more of just setting us up for a game plan. And I understand, especially the bridge and copper, that it is going to be a heavy lifting and the conversations surrounding a complete total replacement, but you know, the reality is at least there are severe maintenance issues that need to be addressed. And how do we position ourselves to go after those other dollars to address them in the next 5 to 7 years?
With the maintenance of the ongoing maintenance, there is a separate pot of money that handles just, we call that the BPMP as part of this in the CIP, but maintenance of O'Burns Ferry Road, Little Bridge is, I don't remember that being on this list, not yet, but it will work its way around in the cycle and it'll get itself on the list. Meanwhile, our own road crews have done various things. We've added plates on the where the transition is between the road and the bridge and different things that we do, and guardrail work that gets done every now and then, but it's little maintenance. It's not anything big.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Robert, and your team for all this work. I just want to clarify that the bridges that are going in, especially bridges that probably weren't going to end up being our highest priority for our CIP, things like Hogan Dam or up on Shads Road, those are all federal dollars that they're not coming out of our pocket. They're on a list that long predated, certainly this board. So they're not competing with other projects like what Supervisor Pollendorf just mentioned.
That is correct.
Because I don't think any of us would spend $1 million on one of those bridges, but federal government chose it. So there you go.
And just to that, we've had some conversations with the Corps. We have ongoing, especially Hogan Dam Road that floods seasonally all the time. So, and those bridges. So you're right. Federal dollars. We're looking.
Apples and oranges. Yeah.
Any other board comments? Hearing none, open up to public. Is there any public comments on this item? Any online?
Yes, there is one online. Janet, you can go ahead and unmute now and talk to the board.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Janet Sterling, and I am a resident of Diamond 20 in Copper. And I know this is an informational item only, but on the proposed 5-year paving plan for CSA 4, which is Diamond 20, I would just ask that we can put this on hold until after we can get some input from the residents, because as Supervisor Follendorf had mentioned, we currently have a meeting and it's taken us months and months between everybody's schedule to get it on the calendar. And it is scheduled for Saturday, March 25th. Supervisor Follendorf is going to be present along with Jacob Lyle. So I would hate for this to come back to the board and the residents not have the opportunity to put their input in on future projects before our meeting. So I would just ask that it be, brought forward to the board after March 25th.
I think that will be the plan, Janet.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Any other public comment online or in the room?
No more online.
Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. This was informational. Yes, Robert, you have a final.
So when we come back, we could put for those roads just various. And then this year, after you have your meeting and we start making those plans, we'll work with you and populate that for the for next year's CIP.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Again, this was informational. So thank you, Robert. Thank you, Mark and Kelly and Jennifer, for your work. And again, thank your road crews for going through. We're back at it again. We went through the storms of the first of the year and now we're back at it now. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we will take, excuse me, a 5-minute break to allow them to break down and Marcos and admin to set up. Okay, we are back. And we are going to move on to item number 23. This is an action item from Administrative Office. This is received the fiscal year 22-23 mid-year budget presentation. And 2, approve the mid-year budget adjustments included in attachments A and B. And 3, approve the mid-year capital assets list included as attachment C. This requires a 4/5 affirmative vote by the board. Marcus, take us away.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board, Marcos Munoz, Assistant CAO. Today I have Denise Hubner with me, Deputy CAO. All right, so let's jump right in. The agenda for today, we're going to go over the budget status as of December 31st, 2022. We're going to go over some highlights from mid-year, as well as going over personnel requests, which the official personnel control list will come back next board meeting for approval with any changes that are recommended today. And then we are going to review the structural deficit and where we currently are at, as well as going over the budget process and timeline for the 2023-24 budget. So diving right in, where are we at? So our overall adopted budget was $234 million. Of that, the general fund budget was at $78 million, with revenue just under $68 million. So that was that final budget. When you take out some one-time things that were happening, we had a $9.4 million structural deficit. Since then, since some cleanup, we have doubled contingencies to $2.4 million. Which is twice the policy minimum. And we have made our general reserve just over $5 million, which is at the policy minimum. All right, so revenue for mid-year taxes. So the first category, that's our property tax, sales tax, TOT tax, VLF, and excise tax. We're coming in at 57%, which is really good. And then but when you look at license, permit, and franchise fees, we're at 34%. And part of that is because franchise fees, some of them don't hit until April. So we haven't had any of those hit, which is driving down those numbers. Those will come in. We just haven't seen anything at this moment. The third category, fines, forfeitures, and penalties. So this was a change during the budget cleanup. We moved teeter into the general revenues category, and teeter typically comes in April. And so you see that 7.9%. That's because we haven't seen the teeter funds come in yet, which we will see come April. Use of money. This is interest, another way to say interest. So this is where we sit on interest. The next two categories are running a little low. That is our intergovernmental revenue, state and federal. So these are our federal and state grants that come in. Right now, we have some outstanding grants that we need to bring in that we are still anticipating to come in. So for example, OES has grants outstanding in about $444,000 that we are still anticipating. Victim Witness has some grant monies that we haven't been able to claim yet. There's about $60,000 in environmental health Coupa funds that we are still waiting to get as well as a outstanding grant in the planning department of $350,000 that we are working on getting that funding in. Some federal funding. We have a couple of grants as well, again, in Victim Witness as we are chasing those monies down, but we do anticipate those monies coming in and those percentages going up. Charges for services, we're right at 49.1%. Miscellaneous revenue is down to 10%. Part of that includes tobacco settlement fees, which also come in towards the end of the year, and we haven't seen that money, and that is just over $500,000 that we are anticipating. And then that leaves our operating transfers in. We're right at 45.7%. And that is our revenue. Some of the questions I get on revenue is how does our sales tax works? So the next two slides, I'm going to talk briefly about sales tax and property tax. So here is sales tax. Our county rate is 7.25. As you can see, the nickel there off to the left of that nickel, 2011 realignment. So that's what you hear when we speak about HHSA and what funds many of their departments is about 1.0625 goes to 2011 realignment in the HHSA departments. The state general fund takes up almost the other 4 cents of that nickel. The county receives roughly 1 penny that goes into our general fund. And then of the other penny, we have 1991 realignment, which also goes to HHSA. And then the other half of that is the Prop 172, the local public safety funding. And then we have 1/4 penny up there, which goes to transportation, and that makes up the 7.25 that comes into our county through sales tax. In terms of property tax, the whole dollar does not come to the county, which is sometimes people think we receive the whole 1%, and we do not. So this chart here shows at the very far right, there's a really tiny sliver that represents the amount that Angels Camp receives. It is about a penny, and I rounded on these numbers, so it's not exactly a penny, but I put it in as about a penny. You look at Calaveras County, we receive roughly 18 cents on every dollar of property tax. The special districts are right on the far left, are right around 2 cents. And then you have the school districts receiving 67 cents of every dollar. And then there is this fund, the ERAF. This is the Educational Revenue Augmentation Fund. Essentially in 1992, the legislature, they shifted money from cities and counties to, for lack of a better way of saying it, to reduce their obligation to schools based on in 1998, Prop 98, which set a minimum to funding community colleges and schools. So that is what the ERAF is. And so that's property tax.
And that's on a good year.
That's on a good year.
We've
Yes. So that
experienced years where we were supposed to get 17 cents and we weren't even getting the 17 cents. So, and we could be looking at one coming up here. So.
correct. That's not a percentage that's set in stone. It does fluctuate a little bit. And that is just where we're currently trending at the moment. So going to comparison back to revenue, looking at how we are doing compared to last year. As you can see, taxes are up overall. But as you go through the numbers, we are a little lower overall year to date. Part of that you see on the operating transfers in line, the just under $1.8 million. That has to do with our Butte Fire settlement funds. We transferred in a lot more last year as we were trying to spend down the monies compared to this year. Right. Expenditures. So where do we lie on expenditures? So salaries and benefits for the year, we're sitting at 47% spent through halfway through the year. Our services and supplies are at 48.3%. Other charges, 50.6%. Capital assets are a little low. We are experiencing a little backlog on getting those in. And then our interfund transfers. This is an interesting one. Essentially, it's when other general fund departments do services for general fund departments. We transfer money back and forth for the services. And then transfers out are down at 34.5% right now. So overall, our expenditures for the year are at 43.4% of what we budgeted. And so comparing that to the year before, we are a little higher in salaries and benefits. And that is, we had COLAs that went into effect, natural progression that happens, and some other changes that have happened. So we're at 11% higher than we were last year. Our services and supplies are down overall. It's down 6.6%. So when you look at it for the year, we are 2.3% lower in expenditures at mid-year than we were last year. So that is an overall, it shows an overall that we've gone down by $812,000. Sorry. So mid-year general fund by function, this is just showing different department sections. So for example, land use, which includes building, code compliance, ag and planning, they're at 41% spent. Public safety is at 44. Public safety includes the DA, the sheriff's department, probation, public defender, OES and the coroner. The one that's up a little is disaster response and recovery. That's at 51.8. That is also our disaster budgets. It's not personnel budgets. It's essentially disaster projects that we have been working on. So overall, our expenditures, you see it again at 43.4%. So what do all these numbers mean? TOT is performing as expected. Local sales tax, Prop 172 and property tax are performing better than anticipated. VLF specifically are coming in higher. And VLF is anticipated to come in at 5.9 million, which is $700,000 higher than what was budgeted. We budgeted 5.2 and are looking at 5.9. Expenditures are slightly less than budgeted at 43.4%. All functional groups fall below that 50%, with the exception of disaster, which is slightly over. So overall, our expenditures are higher by 991,000 than our revenue. But because of the, if you take out the one-time transfer to increase our general reserve, we are netting just under 400,000 higher in expenditures than revenue at mid-year.
Marcos.
Yes.
VLF.
Vehicle license fees. Sorry. So the registration for vehicles. All right. And so jumping into mid-year budget adjustments, the highlights, and I only put in here some things that would stand out, the ARPA fees. So you'll see a lot of budgets, or I'm sorry, a lot of departments on the changes. That's because we had bargained ARPA incentive fees. And so this was the adjustment to make sure all the budgets received the funding from that. As I mentioned earlier, VLF is coming in higher, but so is Prop 172. We made an adjustment at final budget. We increased sales tax, but we did not touch Prop 172, which is also linked to sales tax. So we made that adjustment as well. Together, those are just over $1 million in increases in revenue. However, you'll see in utilities, we are requesting a $95,000 increase in appropriations. CPPA voted to increase their primary rates by 24%, 24.7, and their secondary rates by 26.6. This took effect in January, so we are seeing the increase in our utilities bills across the board. Also, the sheriff is bringing in revenue through I always get the acronym backward, gel-based competency treatment, so JBCT. And they are also contracting with Amador and Tuolumne for bed space. So they're bringing in over $830,000 in this adjustments. But they're also asking for an increase in appropriations, which essentially offsets the adjustments that they're bringing in. The mid-year are going into other ones, county contributions. We had a road in our disaster budgets from the 2019 storms. The construction costs came in higher than the estimate, and so we see an increase in the general fund matched here. Economic development, we had a grant through the CDBG program, Community Development Block Grant Program, issuing loans. We had a loan underwriter set up, but that fell through. We are unable to secure a loan underwriter, so we've had to give back the grant, which results in a loss of revenue. On-site wastewater, they've had a hard time filling staffing positions. During the budget cleanup, we captured those salary savings, but they've had to also contract for services to perform the duties those employees would have done. So that's why we're putting the money back in the budget. And then cannabis, this was more of an error. We had the money going into the general fund when it should have went into a special revenue fund. So we just made that correction. And the final result is essentially bringing $854,000 back into the general fund to offset our structural deficit from mid-year. So jumping into personnel requests, and we're going to start with the general fund. So there's a lot going on this first slide. I'll try and simplify it. So the district attorney is requesting some reclassifications, reclassifying anything that says victim witness, so victim witness coordinator, victim witness advocate, to district attorney services tech. And the reason for this is she has several grants. As I mentioned in the earlier slide, we were having trouble drawing down the funding in victim witness. This allows this reclass her to draw down that funding. So specifically, those grants only allow those positions that say victim witness, the way the grant was written, to draw down that funding. By making this change, anybody that is called a district attorney service tech can actually pull down the funding. And since those victim witnesses are vacant, this allows other staffing, which are also district attorney service techs in her budget, to also draw down that funding. And speaking with Barbara, she anticipates this could potentially help to draw down $100,000 in grant money that she's having trouble drawing down at the moment. It also nets a savings of $23,000 overall. And part of that is HHSA has jumped into the mix, and they are helping to pay up to 50% of one of the positions as well for services HHSA needs that require a district attorney investigator. So that's the district attorney. I'm going to jump over to the jail. The jail, we are looking to reclassify the correctional techs to a correctional tech 1, 2, 3. There's currently 7 of them, 3 which are currently vacant, 1 which we filled, I believe, back in October. It's been a struggle to fill these positions over the years, but this structure, the 1, 2, 3, aligns with the sheriff patrol budget, where we have the sheriff techs 1, 2, 3. In looking at the funding, it's minimal. It affects 3 people, and that's why you see a small increase of just over $13,000. But this essentially makes that classification right within the correctional budget. And the hope is also to increase retention by making this change as well, and try and get those positions filled that continue to remain vacant.
Marcus?
Yes.
Just real quick, a lot of the times that's the initial cost overall for 13,581. If these position changes do come forward, could we get a total cost if everyone became a 3 and what that cost would be?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. So next meeting, Judy will bring the position control list, and we'll put the total cost in there if they were all a 3. Right now, it is, in order to be a 2, it requires 3 years experience. To be a 3, it requires 5 years.
I understand the progression.
Okay.
Yes, no, absolutely. But there's a total cost there that could be, there's a potential.
Correct. Yes. So. And moving on to the next page, general fund. So this is a reclassification of a custodian to a facilities maintenance worker. This is also a small increase of $4,450. The purpose of this is we currently have 3 facilities maintenance workers, but to do some of the jobs require 2. When we send somebody on a roof, we always send them in pairs. Some of those more risky jobs, we just want to make sure everybody's safe. And so we want to be able to break them in sets of 2. What we do right now is essentially we have 2 and we have to wait for 1 to become available in order to send them on the other task. So that's why we're looking to make this change here. And then general fund, we have a vacant clerical assistant position that's been on the books for some time and has been vacant that we are looking to delete. And so that $70,000 would also go towards our structural deficit, as that would be an ongoing cost as well. And so moving into non-general fund, and there's a lot here. The first one, the fiscal services managers, HHSA is looking to reclass those 3 positions. They're looking to make it into a series of 1, 2. The one needing heavy oversight, as it's more of training, learning the job. The 2 being an experienced position with limited oversight that oversees staff. And then the request for the program coordinator to be downgraded to an account technician 4. This is a downgrade of the position. It's currently underfilled by an accounting technician 4. That would net a cost savings of $21,210. They are also looking to downgrade the supervising clinician to the supervising case manager, which will also net a savings, minimal savings. The community service liaison, they are looking to reclassify that position into the peer support specialist 1, 2. The peer support specialist 1 is at the same cost of the community service liaison, so there is no cost there. The 2 actually draws down revenue. The 2 is certified with the state as a peer support specialist, which allows them to draw down Medi-Cal reimbursement dollars. So really, by being able to get them to the 2 and certified, you'll see an offset through revenue for that position. Yes.
Real quick, since we're doing these, Chair, can we checked off, a lot of these are representative positions. Are we good with our labor unions?
Yes, Judy has met with the labor unions on these positions.
So we've met, conferred, and we're all good.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
And then the final positions page I have here is HHSA is requesting a new position, the fiscal services manager. And then the cost there is $95,000. And then they're also requesting some salary adjustments. The psychiatrist. The psychiatrist is currently at the range of 111 to 136. As you know, in this county, it's been about 7 years since we've had a live psychiatrist in this county. We are currently paying $259 per hour for telepsych services, and then $281 is in the contract in order to bring them here on site. The new range, which was similar to Amador did, and Amador was able to get a live body, puts their fully loaded cost at $219, so still below the amount that we're paying for telepsych. And the intention of this is to try and get a live body here in the county. Now, to be clear, by increasing the range and bringing a live body, that does not mean the contracts for telepsych would go away. Currently, we're contracting out about 60 hours a week. And so even if we brought a live body in here, we would still need some services through telepsych. And then the final one on here is the salary adjustments. The supervising clinician and the clinician 1, 2. These are clinical positions that we are experiencing a high turnover rate on. We can't seem to keep them, and they're very hard to get. So those positions I know have been discussed between Judy and HHSA, and the recommendation today here is a 5% increase for the clinical positions. And that's what I have on position changes. Do I have any questions regarding those? I know I said a lot there.
The comment. I just wanted to mention on some of these positions. First, I wanted to give a shout out to our interim chief probation officer. She's bringing forward things that are going to save us money and bring in some income. Take one position away and look for additional income. Be that set of every department, and that's she's set the example. So I want to thank her for that. Particularly, I also wanted to mention in Health and Human Services, the fiscal management area, it needs strengthening. There was some person that was really good that used to be over there that came to a different department and left a gaping hole over there. And we need to strengthen that area. It's one of your biggest budget centers and one of the most complicated budget centers. So I can't endorse this one strongly enough that we need to strengthen that area. It's a great opportunity, but it's also it's an area you can sink really quickly if you don't have the proper support. So I did want to mention those in particular.
No, I get the savings in a few of these on retention, but this list is deep. And I mean, we've been having these discussions quite a bit over the last so many years. It's a lot to take in and do all at once in a mid-year budget. I have a hard time with all these all at once. I mean, you say you go through all this, HR's met with all the unions and discussed every one of these positions with the represented. I find that hard to fathom. There's just so much here. It's a deep list, and there's not much more I can say than that.
Supervisor Garamendi.
I agree with Supervisor Stopper. There's a lot there, but Nick's given us thumbs up that he consulted with the labor. So I've never known Nick to lead us, not be honest with us. So I'll believe him. But Nick, you want to?
Yes, I can talk about that real quick. We did meet with each of the labor unions on all of these changes, and they have approved everything so far.
Yeah, I can understand that, but here's where I'm coming from. Is, in discussions, we're looking at doing a deeper dive, desk audits and everything else. This list is very large coming forward ahead of those from my perception, of course, I can understand you sat down with them. I mean, most all of these are raising those up, so that there's going to be no argument from representative if you're raising their positions. And I'm not saying that not one of these positions don't need it. I just, it's a lot to take in all at once, especially during a mid-year with this many changes.
I want to, if I can, I'm glad we're doing this, trying to get ahead of this structural deficit. That was the direction we gave last summer and fall. And thank you very much, Craig and Marcos, and putting this whole thing together. Denise, this was reasonably as bad as it sounds, this was the low hanging fruit to get ahead of this. This was the stuff that's obvious and we can clean up. I would encourage all department heads to get ready, because we're going to have to. This June will be a much different set of adjustments to make, but we have to live within our means, and I'm continuing to commit to that. We have to live within our means, and we have to have honest and transparent budgets. And I think we have made enormous progress towards that. I want to thank you guys very much, and I want to encourage everybody to get ready for this next round. It's what we need, maybe not always what we want.
Any other supervisor? Okay, move on.
All right, the capital assets. So the duplication fund is looking to purchase 2 copiers using their special revenue fees to replace 2 machines. The mail postage machine actually saw savings after they purchased their equipment. It came in lower, so that one's a savings of just under $2,000. And OES is increasing its capital assets appropriations by moving money into it in order to spend the high frequency grant dollars on the equipment. So that was an approved item that came in higher. So in order to cover the cost, they moved the money over. The non-general fund, capital assets, mental health, they received a crisis care mobile unit grant. And they are looking to purchase an RV/van to provide crisis services. They are also looking for a secondary crisis vehicle that would also be purchased with this grant. And then in their search for a hybrid vehicle based on the direction at final budget, the approved vehicle they have in their budget is coming in higher. So they're asking for an increase in appropriations on that vehicle in order to purchase the hybrid vehicle. And that is the capital assets, much smaller than the personnel list. All right, so the structural deficit. So where do we sit currently? So just a review of where we started. We started with approximately a $9.4 million structural deficit at final budget, which was roughly 12.5% of our overall budget. Then we took the first bite at the apple. The first bite at the apple, we were able to take that $9.4 million down to about $4.4 million. And that was our core problem. After mid-year, when taken into account the ongoing revenues that are coming from here, plus the position, you're looking at $924,000. And so it brings our structural deficit from just under 4.4 to just over $3.4 million. So we continue to attack the structural deficit. What does this mean in terms of our funding available? We are able to now, and the recommendation at mid-year is to take that additional savings and move it over into our capital fund that was established during the first bite of the apple. As you can see, it will bring the total from just under 18 million to about 18.5. Just to let you know, the reason why you don't see the full impact of it is because we also had ARPA funding coming out of there in the amount of 256 that also hit the budget during mid-year. And so that brings us to the budget process for 23-24. Where we are looking at continuing the budget process and timeline. So the budget is governed by state law, guided by the board's direction. We have been identifying key issues that we need to address during the budget. Budget instructions are anticipated to go out tomorrow, March 1st. The CEO and departments will meet in April and May to discuss what has been inputted into budget and make recommendations. Our budget hearings are scheduled right now for June 13th through the 16th. That's the second week in June, with the approval at the end of June, and then technical adjustments for final budget brought back in September. And this is a collaborative process with all departments in putting the budget together. We do have some things to continue to consider in next year's budget, that being the structural deficit, our economy and the uncertainty that surrounds that. Also inflation, as we saw with utilities, things are increasing. We also have to remember we do have MOU increases as part of that 5-year agreement. And then infrastructure projects, as we continue to move through those, those are big ticket items. And so we need to continue to keep our eyes on those as well. So the recommended actions, any direction that you have for changes to the 22-23 mid-year budget. I also ask that you approve the adjustments here and that you authorize us to continue to work with the auditor controller. Basically what I'm saying is continue to work on that structural deficit and get it down to zero. The last thing, I just want to thank everybody that helped with mid-year, the CAO, admin staff, department heads, department fiscal staff, the auditor controller, for letting this be a smooth process. And that brings me to the question slide.
Thank you, Marcus. Denise? Questions? Any other board questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll open up to staff. There's a lot of staff in the room and staff comments. Mr. Sandbag, no? Okay, public comments. Do we have any public comments? Seeing none in the room. Is there any online?
There is not.
Nothing online. Okay, well, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion on approving all of the items or discussion on some items. I know Ben had some concerns about the adjustments on the personnel list. Any comments or questions about a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Second.
We have a motion by Supervisor Garamendi, a second by Supervisor Fallendorf to accept the changes that were presented to us today by Mr. Marcos. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm an aye. You're an aye. Okay. Aye. Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you. We'll take another 5-minute break, allow you to break down and leave. Across the hall. All right, we're back in session. Recording's on. We move on to supervisor announcements. In compliance with Government Code 53232.3D. Board members shall provide brief reports on any meetings attended at the expense of the local agency and may make other announcements or report out. Mr. Hubbard, we will start with you, Supervisor.
Thank you, Chair. I attended the CSAC conference for new supervisors last week and got even much more to read. It was very good conference. I really appreciated the information that we got, and thank you for doing that for me.
Okay. Supervisor Garamendi.
Golden State Connect Authority, that executive team meeting last week, as well as. Sorry, Susan. Golden State Connect Authority had a board meeting executive board meeting last week. We'll be bringing forward a final contract to the full committee, Golden State Connect Authority. That'll bring us into contract with Utopia Fiber out of Utah. We should be expecting some preliminary design for Calaveras County in the next couple of weeks.
Perfect.
Stan Moore has been and Kathy as well have been great partners in putting this together. So we should have something to look at here and figure it out. There's a ton of moving parts. We're only building the largest municipally owned broadband system in the United States while we're flying that airplane. So what's to worry about? Hopefully I'll have something to show you guys pretty soon. And we've talked about having a presentation on it for too long, so you guys can all
Very good.
give your input. Thank you.
Very good. Supervisor Ballendorf.
I don't have anything to report. I've kind of been out of commission the last week due to some medical issues, but I did want to say an early birthday to Susan. So it is her birthday tomorrow. So happy birthday. I hope you have a good day.
Which means we have to wait till tomorrow's meeting, COG meeting, to sing you happy birthday tomorrow, right? Supervisor Stopper.
I'm here and it cost the county money. That's my report.
Okay. And I attended the Mountain Valley EMS Agency Board meeting yesterday morning, and then Central Sierra Child Support Agency meeting yesterday afternoon. And we have as I mentioned just a minute ago, we have a COG meeting tomorrow evening, 5:30 in these chambers, and we will be singing happy birthday to Susan. 21st, right? Okay, with that, we'll ask Craig, do you have anything you would like to bring up? No, you're good? Okay, then we will move on to the next item, which is closed session as pursuant to Government Code 54957B1, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, title County Council. But before we adjourn to closed session, we'll ask the clerk, Robin, to report out from our closed session on February 14th.
February 14th, report a closed session. Item number 1, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, title Interim County Executive Officer. There is no reportable action. Would you like to call public comment for the?
Yes, I was going to call
session?
public comments after that. Any public comments on either one of these two? None online, none in the room. We'll close.